If he's there at 12, do you have interest in him based on what you saw on film?
Actually does do some things that I like. Very accurate, very smart, very tough. There's nothing elite about him, but that's not a bad thing. He wins with his mind, so he wins with.
And we're back, Foots. It's always a pleasure to get on here and talk ball with you, my man. You know, the NFL draft, there's nothing like talking football in late March. I mean, You've been around the media community, the Cowboys community for a long time, and March talk is crazy time. Like, Dak's getting traded to the Browns. Everybody in the locker room can't stand Micah. CeeDee Lamb can't do his first down celebration. All that stuff. But for today, me and you, we don't do crazy talk. Spare everybody all of that, because there's a very real, very consistent conversation that keeps popping up for the Cowboys, and that's the discussion around the quarterback 2 for this football team. It's not something Dallas has addressed so far in free agency. They didn't bring Cooper Rush back like they typically did in years past. So whispers about upgrading that spot are getting louder and louder. So in today's video, we're going to look at 5 quarterbacks that could be drafted by Dallas. But before we do all of that, I want to get your take on how all of this has played out so far.
I think so. Actually, I got to give you flowers, man. Zach, you were one of the first people to kind of bring to my attention. What are the Cowboys doing to quarterback? Like, you let Cooper Kupp. You said Cooper Kupp, I said Cooper. And it's funny, Dak tried to recruit him and whatever. You let Cooper Rush go. Well, you didn't let him go, but you didn't re-sign him, right? And that just feels like that's always been the safe bet. Cooper Rush will be on the Cowboys, backing up the Cowboys starter, which is Dak Prescott. Well, Cooper Rush is gone. Trey Lance is going to the CFL. And at the end of the day, Will Grier, let me see in the camera. I'm cool. Like, good preseason body, whatever, but no. I think Stephen Jones kind of alluded to it, that we want to attack it in the draft. The interesting thing is that quarterback kind of continues to be like a sneaky topic. Like, who would they bring in? There's been talks of Quinn Ewers. We'll talk about him. I got to tell you, this could be interesting as to where and how early they attack this position, because we need to keep a few things in mind, Zach. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news for everybody watching this video. Dak has had 2 season-ending injuries in the last 4 years. He had the ankle. This year, he had the hamstring on a routine play. I know fans will say, you just paid him a bunch of money. They don't want to hear that. My thoughts when it comes to development, when it comes to team building, you don't want to wait till you need a quarterback to draft a quarterback. Look at the Browns. Look at the Giants. Look at these teams that are really in purgatory. Look at Pittsburgh. They're never bad enough to be at the top of the draft. So now they're going out and spending money on Russell Wilson's, trying to court Aaron Rodgers, trying to do these things. To me, if you go quarterback semi-early, as much as we don't want to, Zach, it may make sense because you have a guy on your roster that if anything happens to Dak, or if Dak just falls off, like, we sit here, and I know I'm kind of long-winded with this one, but we sit here, Zach, and act like, Atlanta, hindsight, wasn't smart for paying Kirk and drafting Michael Penix. But guess what? Atlanta has the last laugh because Kirk's play completely fell off. Michael Penix looks like he's going to be a player. So I'm just saying, at that position, you need to be covered.
And you mentioning taking how early Dallas is going to take a quarterback in this draft, I think the perfect spot to start off, and people might be confused by this name, wonder why we're even considering Shadur Sanders as a quarterback on this list. We're talking about quarterbacks, and we're going to kind of go through here and break down each guy. But, somebody in that first round range that could possibly get to Dallas. We're not talking about Cam Ward, probably the number 1 overall pick, but maybe Shadur Sanders, right? The Browns decide they want to pass on a quarterback. The Giants decided they want to pass on a quarterback. The Raiders do too. And next thing you know, Shadur Sanders is sitting there on the board at 12. So I'm going to let you break down the player while also asking you, if he's there, while you're giving me his scouting report, if he's there at 12, do you have interest in him based on what you saw on film?
So It's funny, Zach. I'm halfway through my top 100. I don't have a top 50 grade on Shadur Sanders. However, I do understand the quarterback tax. Let's get into just who Shadur Sanders is. I'm not like the masses where I'm too high or too low on Shadur. I just think he's a guy. Like, I think that I don't have a first round grade on him, but I don't think he's an awful quarterback. And he actually does do some things that I like. Very accurate, very smart, very tough. Colorado's O-line wasn't great, but some of those sacks were on Shadur. There are times where he holds the ball too long, and I wrote it down. There's nothing elite about him, but that's not a bad thing. He wins with his mind. So he wins with, he can, he can set defenses up. He can set coverage structures up with his eyes, with the shoulder pump. And it doesn't hurt to have a Horn catching the ball or Travis Hunter catching the ball. Like, he had those types of weapons. I thought the Cincinnati game was exceptional. He had a 91 QBR in that game. He was very accurate. He was on time. But then you see all tape, and I was watching the tape today. You saw the BYU game where he just kind of came unwound. Like, it just, when the rush started getting to him, and the sad thing about it is he is, his dad is an amazing athlete. Shadur is a below average athlete. And I think that's where, if he were to go to a team like the Giants, bad O-line, the Browns have questions on their O-line, he doesn't change their trajectory in that way. I think coming to a team like Dallas, would I draft him? Probably not, because I think that the value for some of these other quarterbacks would be better in the second round or even trading back into the first round. I wouldn't draft him at 12 because I think at 12 is the last line of an elite player. And I just don't have him graded as an elite player, but throws in windows well. The ability to constantly evade pressure, he doesn't have it, but he'll try. Like, he'll try to step up and through the pocket. He has some of that in his bag. But down the field, pressing the ball consistently, the arm talent for me just isn't there with Sanders.
I think you laid him out perfectly for everybody watching. And Shadur is easily the most polarizing name in this draft because of the attention that he got while he was at Colorado with his dad, Deion Sanders, being a Hall of Famer, all of that stuff. If there is one thing about Shadur and his game, it's that we know this dude can handle the spotlight. Yeah. And I have no doubt in that Cowboys war room, if Shadur is sitting there, whatever grade they have on him, whatever, Jerry Jones would have interest in that just because of the headlines. Be the most unbearable 4 years of our lives. Every bad Dak game, whatever happened, the Shadur Sanders talk. But the good thing is I thought he did get better every single year of college. Like, he improved. He started at Jackson State, went to Colorado, played behind a bad offensive line that probably made him see ghosts at times. But he improved every year of college. I'm not sure I would take him at 12 either, answering my own question. But it would certainly be interesting if he's there, just because of how big the name is and how big the Cowboys brand is. So moving out of the first round, guys that maybe would be considered at 12, let's talk about Quinn Ewers. This is a name that I really think is a real option at 44.
Agreed.
And that terrifies me. That terrifies me. I know a lot of people that watch this channel probably watch Texas football, probably saw a ton of Quinn Ewers over the past couple of years, and I think it's a mess. I think a lot of it is a mess. Yes, watching him play live, watching him on film, just some of the footwork stuff, when he gets pressure in his face, what he throwing off his back foot, throwing it into double coverage. I just don't see a second round player in Quinn Ewers. But I was telling you earlier, I think when you take a quarterback or you like a quarterback, let's assume Dallas does, he's an option at 44, whatever. I feel like you have to take him around early just because of the position. I like the guy a whole lot. He's there at 44. Well, he might not be there at 87. So we got to take him at 44. And if there's a round that Dallas likes taking risk in, it's the second round. Kelvin Joseph, Jalen Smith, Sam Williams, Randy Gregory, we can go on, and maybe Ewers isn't the kind of risk, maybe like personality-wise or anything like that. But I do think the traits are a risk because you're going to have to develop that and hope that he can develop and be worth the 44th overall pick.
Yeah, for me with yours, and I wrote this down in my notes, even though you had yours. We kind of talked pre-show about the quarterbacks we wanted to talk about, but I just had to Zach, like I was like, Zach, am I wrong? And you're like, no, Foots, we see him the same. And the arm talent is so strange because he'll have games where it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like the lower half looks good, compact. He'll make throws. He'll push the ball downfield. And then there's like the Georgia tape where, especially the first one, it's just like, oh, no. And he can't avoid pressure. That he's, his eyes are dropping when pressure's there. And his offensive line didn't help him in that game. And, we were talking about the Arizona State game. You brought that up to me. I was like, you're right. Like he had stretches in that game where it was just bad. And it's crazy because you go back to 2023 versus Alabama, he looks the part. Throwing the ball down the field, putting air on deep balls, like throwing with touch, had Adonai Mitchell, had guys out there. So he's able to do certain things. And he still had guys this year. He just didn't play that well. And we're not just pooping on the guy. I mean, you could ask any Texas fan. They were pretty much ready for Arch Manning to take over. You got to be careful what you wish for in that vein. But I got to tell you, Sark designed some nice stuff offensively. And it was just times Quinn Ewers just looked off, Zach.
Yeah, and I know I talked negatively there for a little bit, but Quinn Ewers in the 4th round, 5th round, I'm happy. I would be so excited. Like we'll take it. 2nd round, and where I imagine a team taking him in the 2nd or 3rd,
quarterback tax.
I just start getting a little bit weary about the value there. So we're talking about guys that are in that range. People have a lot of these quarterbacks, a lot of these players in this draft. It's a weird draft. They're all over the place.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about Jaylen Milroe. I'm going to let you have the floor for this one. But Jaylen Milroe, I feel, falls in that 2nd to 3rd round range. Developmental, has some things that maybe you need to clean up, doesn't start right away. So give us your breakdown on Jaylen Milroe.
Zach, we talked about it pre-game. We're pre-gaming for this. What I'm about to say may shock some people, but I'm going to read this exactly from my notes. Okay, so here are the notes, guys. I'm still old school. Zach, he new school. He's the GOAT, man. He has it all up top. But me, I got to read it. Guys, I wrote this down. The most gifted quarterback in this class. And people say, Foots, there's no way you believe that. I do. When you talk about his ability to run, he had a play to avoid pressure, to stay calm in the pocket, to not float, to not drift. He had a play versus Georgia. Free rusher coming. He evades that. He runs past Malachi Starks. He doesn't just run past. He just casually trots past Malachi Starks, tries to run over a safety. This dude, he has that type of bag. If you watch the Georgia tape, again, 100 yards rushing and 300 yards passing, you would draft him off that tape alone and say, got my quarterback for the next 10 years. And then the second half of the year happened. But he's had 3 games over 100 yards. The one game that gives me ghost, that makes me see ghosts with him, is the Tennessee game. Just very inaccurate, very just like pressing, bad interceptions. I mean, even the Michigan game, his last game ever, again, just pressing, not playing clean football. So he has that as well. But when you just talk about gifted, when you just talk about athlete, when you just talk about arm talent, because he has a very strong arm. Ball placement isn't great, but Jaylen Milroe has a very strong arm. He can push the ball down the field. He can make every throw. It's just about the mechanics need to be cleaned up. He would benefit from watching Dak practice, from watching Dak prepare, from watching Dak's mechanics, from how just being in the room. Here's the thing. And Zach, actually, you know what? You made a point about what happened when Cooper Rush came in, about just running and evading. And so I'm going to give that point to you, because I would draft Jaylen Milroe. He's the one that I would probably take in the 2nd round and sleep like a baby, because if you hit on that, you hit on gold for a while.
And the first conversation point with Jaylen Milroe is going to be the athleticism. It's Number one, it's like you said, the most gifted athlete in this class. And it was something that you were missing at the quarterback position with Cooper Rush. The offensive line had its problems, and your quarterback had his problems, and it was a disaster. The 37-0, whatever. And Jaylen Milroe, I think it's becoming more and more common with these young quarterbacks that they can help keep you ahead of the sticks with their athleticism. A guy gets around the edge, Jaylen Milroe can slide up and out of the pocket and get 12 yards. Cooper Rush can't and get sacked for 12 yards. That's 24 yards of field position in one simple slide in the pocket. And that's what this offense was needing so bad last year. But we saw Jaylen Milroe at the Senior Bowl. None of the quarterbacks really stood out. They're throwing to receivers that they don't normally play with, guys they met 2 days before they got there. But I thought he had one of the nicest deep throws in practice. I think it was to Jack Besh down the sideline. Like, Jaylen Milroe throws a really nice deep ball. And for him as a prospect, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it can be bad. He can hit some lows as a player. But like you said, sitting behind Dak Prescott, I think honestly that might be the perfect quarterback for him to sit behind. If you remember when Dak came into the league, his mechanics were all over the place. Now, he's not a perfectly polished passer now, but if you go back and watch 2016 Dak Prescott, stiff, throwing way over the top, inaccurate, miss high, miss low. Watch how he developed as a passer, and now watch 2023 Dak Prescott throw the ball. He completely changed his mechanics. So it is possible to become a better passer while being athletic, while avoiding negative plays as a young player and developing as a passer. I would have no problem taking him in the second round just based off the athleticism, the physical profile, and being able to learn behind Dak. So let's move on to Will Howard, college football national championship winner, took over the job for a guy we're going to talk about a little bit later. But give me your thoughts on Will Howard, what you saw on film.
And I'll keep this one kind of shorter. With Howard is vanilla. Like, that's if you're looking for something to describe Will Howard, he's going to get the job done. You brought this up pre-show. The size profile is really, really good. I give Will Howard credit for bouncing back after that Michigan game. It was bad. I mean, he couldn't press the ball downfield. He couldn't get the ball to athletes like Jeremiah Smith. He's been blessed with some good receivers now. Emeka, Jeremiah Smith, 2 good running backs in the backfield, and Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Will Howard is a steady Eddie. I'd look at him as an upgraded Cooper Rush, but you're not going to get more than that. You're not going to get good arm, like great or good arm talent. I think his arm talent is average to below average. Decent athlete, but that's pretty much like his calling card. He can do some things out of structure, but the ball placement is pretty good. It just doesn't have much velocity. For me, velocity and arm strength and being able to push a ball and throw guys open, that's not really his bag. That's why you saw Chip Kelly design so many just quick games. Get the ball to the flats, let Jeremiah Smith do the rest, let Travion Henderson do the rest. And I thought that Will Howard did a great job of just organizing and conducting that offense. So vanilla, that's what I would describe Will Howard as. And I would you don't draft him in the 3rd, 2nd round, more like a 5th round, maybe even a 6th round pick if he's fighting with guys like Dylan Gabriel, Curtis Rourke, guys like that. But high-end NFL backup, but don't think he can ever develop into a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL.
I think people are gonna, because I've seen, obviously we've talked about it with this class, people are all over the place with all of these guys. Maybe it's just Twitter, because Twitter or X is what it is, but Will Howard is like what you said. I think I said 6'4", 235. Like, NFL teams are gonna love that on its own. They love the big guy that has, a decent arm, has won a national championship. They're going to look at him, what he did going through the college football playoffs, and as a leader in that locker room. Like you said with him, he was driving a Corvette at Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he had 2 NFL running backs. Jeremiah Smith would have been a top 3 pick in this year's class. I could definitely see him falling in that 4th or 5th round range. I could also see a team really trying to take a risk, take a flyer on him as a steady Yeti. Like, maybe Dallas needing a quarterback that maybe lifts the floor a little bit, lifts the floor of a guy like Will Greer.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way that you do on Will Howard. So we're not talking about vanilla with this next guy because Kyle McCord from Syracuse transferred to Syracuse this past year. And we were talking about this pre-show. He was so boring there. Like, I remember him missing throws to Marvin Harrison Jr., lollipopping it out of the back of the end zone, whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't catch a ton of Syracuse games this year, but Kyle McCord somehow turned into a gunslinger, throw 3 interceptions, throw 4 touchdowns. That's probably what he's going to be in the NFL. He has a really solid arm. I think he can make just about every throw on the field. And I think with him, you take the good with the bad. A little nugget I found on him, he led his conference in big-time throw percentage. He was making the most big-time throws, I think 20 yards down the field, but he was also the highest in turnover-worthy play percentage. That's just kind of the player he is. I think he's another guy that falls in that 5 or 6 range where later round quarterback, but we've talked about it a ton with Dallas. Since they did nothing at quarterback 2, do you sit around and wait for a Kyle McCord in the 5th round? Does he even make it there? You just have no idea with these quarterbacks. All it takes is one team, and if you're like, oh, well, we'll wait for Kyle McCord in the 5th, if we can clean up some of the decision-making stuff, help build his confidence, he's a high floor backup quarterback. Like, you can't guarantee that he'll be there in the 5th round. But I did like his film because it was just fun. Some of the stats that he had at Syracuse last year, much more fun player than he was at Ohio State in 2023.
Yeah, I think, we talked about him. With him, the thing that I like, Zach, was he took chances. Now, the 4 interception game, you can't have that in the league. But he plays so robotic at Ohio State. There were times I watched him, and I'm like, man, I'll never forget the Michigan game. I'm like, bro, throw the ball. Just give these guys a chance. Give Marvin Harrison Jr. a chance. Give these guys a chance. It was cool. He plays so free at Syracuse. And again, you hit on it. The arm talent's there. This is a guy who I don't know if you would have to draft him in a 2nd, but I don't see him being there in the 5th because he can push the ball. He can do some things. Now, the athletic profile actually is what I don't like. I didn't like him out of structure. Didn't like his pocket presence. But, he can push the ball. I see it. And he's the one that in the later rounds, I would say, could turn into a starter. Because the arm arrogance and the arm is beautiful. Like, with the interceptions, with some of the mistakes, the arm is still beautiful, Zach. And I would say he's the one that in the right system with the right weapons, he could turn into a starter.
Foots, is there anything else that you have to share? I know we're doing the NFL draft show. I actually was texting Sky about that yesterday. We're getting all of that ready to go. I'm super excited because I think the 1st and 2nd night of the NFL draft, there's going to be quite a few names that we're going to have some really big thoughts on. So super excited. Cannot wait for the draft. We're really starting to lock down on these players, talk about more and more. If there's a position group you want to hear about, let us know down below in the comments.
I think that when we get together with these, people love them. And so we try to get at least one a weekend for you all. And obviously with the draft and the draft guide that we're doing, I'll be working on my top 100. Got a few more players to plug in. So you guys make sure that you guys hit the description and the link in the description box for that draft guide. You guys are going to love this draft guide once it's all said and done. And obviously with Skywalker still, man, quarterbacking this thing, me and Zach are prepared. Like we've pretty much scouted. If they're going to be drafted, we pretty much either talked about them, seen them, went to the Senior Bowl. We started early in the process. And there's a bunch of people throughout the community who have. But I can honestly say this is the most prepared I am for a draft in a draft class. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of our work, Zach. And honestly, come April, like once March Madness is over, I feel like we're at the finish line. Like there isn't a guy who is on the Cowboys radar who we won't be able to give you their ups, their downs, their highs, their lows, and how they fit with this team. So that's just the work that we put in, Zach, and I'm proud of it.